Most people don't realize how much unresolved trauma they're carrying in their chest. A lot of this might have something to do with unresolved shame. And so let's talk a little bit about what shame is. So, shame is this feeling that you're holding a secret, something inside, something that happened to you that you don't want anybody to know about. The feeling that somebody might learn this truth about you fills you with a sense of dread, fear, shame. So, for those of us who are carrying around unresolved trauma, there may be a fear that if you are your authentic self in front of others, if you allow your voice to express itself the way it really wants to be expressed, there may be a fear of being found out. And so that's what I mean by a fear of the repressed shame being exposed. So, what happens when you're carrying around a secret, something that happened to you that you don't want people to know about? We have a tendency to hold our breath a lot more often than you would think. Just think about this for a moment. If you're carrying around unresolved trauma, you have shame around these traumas, and you're out there in the world at work, and perhaps something happened that morning that triggered you, and now you're dealing with this feeling of all kinds of feelings around the trauma that has been exposed to you, to your psyche. And there's also, on top of that, this fear of other people being able to read it on you. It's a very scary feeling. It feels like I don't want to be myself too much because they might find out my secret. And so this idea of being found out, I always liken it to the experience of hide and seek when you were a child. So when you were a kid and you played hide and seek, you were hiding, and then the seeker might have been just around the corner. And so when you could sense that the seeker was about to find you, you probably held your breath, because breath makes sound and sound gets you found. And so it's natural that if you're having a really rough day and stuff is coming up for you, but you still have to function in the world, that you might be walking around holding your breath. And what happens when you hold your breath is that your voice isn't getting enough fuel. And so the tongue is tightening up. And so whenever you have to speak, it feels uncomfortable. It feels tense. You might even feel tension or pain in your chest. Worse is if people can read that something is wrong. And if well-meaning people ask you, hey, what's wrong? Is something going on? You may feel it impossible to communicate what's going on. You may open up your mouth to speak and nothing comes out. Or you may feel that you forget what words are. That's happened to me before. But the tension is what I want to work with today. This tension that's a result of holding your breath, because when somebody asks you what's wrong and you're not ready to talk about it, in fact, you may even fear people finding out what's bothering you because there's a feeling of shame around it. That may be really scary. And so you may hold your breath even more, and that restricts your ability to speak. And so I want to show you an exercise where you can learn how to relax the tongue, allow the ribs to expand, and so therefore allow more breath to come into the lungs. And then I want to show you how to make sound with ease. And if you practice this on a regular basis, maybe you can get to a point where when you're having these moments of discomfort in front of other people and you're finding it very difficult to speak, maybe you can call upon this practice to make it easier to allow your voice to work. So the first thing we want to do is learn how to relax the back of the tongue. So a bodily function that happens all the time, instinctually, and without even any kind of command is yawning. And yawning is a relaxation effect, or I should say it's a consequence of being relaxed. When your body is starting to let go of tension, you yawn. So what we're going to do is we're going to pretend to yawn so that you can get a sense of what it feels like. So just go ahead and pretend to yawn like this. You may even trigger a real yawn. And so when a real yawn happens, study it. Pay attention to what's happening to the back of the tongue. Let's do another pretend yawn and notice what happens to the jaw and the back of the tongue. Oh. The jaw drops. The back of the tongue drops as well. Let's do that once more and notice what happens to the breath. Oh. So there's a swift inhale of air, and then that same air comes out before the sound happens. So before we do a yawn again, go ahead and pretend like you're fogging up a mirror like this. That's the kind of sound that will precede the sound of your voice when we do it the next time. So here we go. Let's do this again. Did you notice how I used my breath to push out the sound of my own voice? We're going to keep the tongue dropped as if we hold on to that yawn and make sound. Here we go. You can use your hand to drop the jaw if that helps. So now what I want to do is a singing exercise where you are going to use this yawning sensation, this pushing the breath outward before you allow the sound to come out. And that's the key word. We want to allow the sound to come out. A lot of people who have experienced extreme levels of trauma have also learned how to become, forgive me, but control freaks. We have learned how to control every aspect of our environment, including our internal environment. And so when it comes to using your voice, you don't realize it, but you're probably using all of these muscles right here to make sound. And that is the first thing we have to learn. We have to unlearn what we're doing there. We have to learn a different way of using the voice. We have to learn to trust that if we set up the right conditions in our body, that sound can flow with ease. And so the first thing we need to do here is allow that yawning action to take place, and then allow the breath to come up, and then allow the sound to follow afterwards. So here's what the singing exercise will sound like. I'm going to begin, and then whenever you feel ready, I want you to join me. Here we go. We're going to fill up with air first. Open up into a yawn. Push the sound out and so that is an exercise that you can work on every day. I really recommend that you practice this. This is one of these things that you won't be able to do this when you really need to unless you've already practiced it. Because what happens to those of us who have experienced a lot of trauma is when we're in front of people who trigger those traumas, whether they mean to or not. A lot of people, you know, they do not intend to trigger you, but because of things you've been through, it just automatically triggers your nervous system into a fear response. And when you get caught in that fear response, you can't think rationally. There's no room in your mind to go, oh, remember that thing I learned from Bella's video? Let's do that right now. It doesn't work like that. That's why you must practice this every day. You must begin to train yourself to remember when it matters. You practice this over and over and over again to get the physical muscle memory involved. And then if you really want to master this, visualize yourself using this relaxation feeling in your throat. Visualize yourself dropping the back of your tongue as you begin to speak whenever you start to feel triggered. That's the way I learned how to get out of my fear response, how to take control back with my voice, real control. Because like I said earlier, we tend to think that control involves squeezing the muscles, making a strong effort. But what I have learned over the years of my own vocal recovery is that true control actually happens in a very strange and perhaps ironic way, where real control happens when you first learn how to surrender into the sensation of your body, into the sensation of your breath. And that takes practice, because your fear response it has become habitual, it has become unconscious, and you really don't have any control when you're in that situation. You must practice overcoming it when you're in a safe space alone. In your alone moments is when you practice these new ways of being. And so only then will you be able to finally remember, when you're in the fear response in front of another person, your body will remember, drop the back of the tongue, expand the rib cage, feel into the breath, feel into the sensation of the voice. That's the only way you can conquer this fear response, as far as I know. And so that's why I share these techniques with you. So I hope that this helped you. If it did, please leave a comment. And if you want to go deeper, I have lots of offerings. You can check those out in the description below. Hope to see you somewhere in my community, in a private session, perhaps in my voice liberation method. So keep going, everybody. The world needs your unique voice. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day.